You get to flip the top card of his Doing Click, boom, counter spell, you're good to go.
See Feline on your right there, Joel on the left. And Feline very enthusiastic about this deck.
Yep,
Plays
she loves it.
a lot of Legacy Opens. And we've been speaking this weekend, it intends on playing the Invitational in Las Vegas later in the year. And again, no surprise to see her doing well so far in the tournament.
I honestly believe the blue-white-red Helm deck, this Counterbalance deck, is one of the better decks in the format, too. I think it's extremely hard to play.
Trying to assist the coverage there. It shows up the hand of a couple of islands, a High Tide.
Must have it decked out.
Spiral, oh yeah. No, this is a labor of love. You
Right.
see Joel take a mulligan here.
Yeah, like I said, I think Joel's deck is probably one of the better decks in the format. It's just very, 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 very difficult to play because you are a very fragile deck that's around a 1-mana card and a 2-mana card, and ever since the resurgence of, or actually the birth of Abrupt Decay, it's been pretty dangerous. I've seen a little bit of tech from the Invitational. I lost to actually blue-white-red deck. He was playing Boros Charm in the sideboard to stop Abrupt Decay. Pretty nifty little answer there, make your stuff indestructible. But this guy, he doesn't want to see High Tide. He wants to see decks with creatures in it. He has 3 copies of Mother Runes in the main deck, 4 copies of Sword to Plowshare, and then he has the insta-kill of Enlightened Tutor for either the Helm of Obedience or the Rest in Peace to one-shot you. For those who aren't familiar with it, Rest in Peace removes all cards that would go to the graveyard. Helm of Obedience mills until you get to a creature there, so you pay it, or you actually play the Helm of Obedience, activate it, and it mills the opponent's entire deck. So here we go, we are starting, and he has piece 1 of the puzzle, Sensei's Divine Top. If Joel here has the Counterbalance on turn, we can't have it on turn 2, just kidding, because that is a basic planes, unless he has a Mystic Gate.
He finds Counterspell, no Divining Top, or no Counterbalance rather. Has Helm, Blood Moon, and I'm not the biggest fan of blue-white-red Enlightened Tutor Counterbalance because I feel like your good matchups get improved at the expense of making some of your more challenging matchups. Worse is you have Enlightened Tutor, you have these fidgety tutor targets.
Well, yeah, it's more for the actual Rest in Peace. If you actually have a Rest in Peace against like Rug Delver, they lose immediately because they have 1/1 Mongoose, 0/1 Goish for the rest of the game, and their deck's just awful. It's just kind of like the steal. It steals. Like the Rest in Peace main deck, you steal wins against Storm, you steal wins against Rug Delver, you steal decks against Reanimator. Think about Reanimator player. You play a Rest in Peace on turn 2, they're like, what?
Yep.
What happened?
So Feline just put the Polluted Delta after drawing Brainstorm. Joel spins his top again. Plays a land and says go. Oh no, he's gonna Brainstorm here, trying to improve his hand. This drops the shields down as he no longer has access to Counterspell.
Yeah, I think he knows what Feline's playing. He's aware that she's not killing him anytime soon, and he does have the Helm of Obedience, so he's going to shuffle it away. Hopefully he does that because he has no like swords or something else he can get rid of, because I definitely would hold on to that over a worthless removal spell.
Brainstorm at the end of the turn.
I see a Ponder.
A lot of blue cantrips.
Yeah, I don't know what half these cards are. They all look very similar. I see a Merchant Scroll, I see a Ponder, pretty much all the pieces. I really liked this deck back when Reset was around because it was real tough to win with this deck. And only the savviest of Legacy players would attempt to play such a thing.
An addition that Feline has made to this deck is an addition of 4 copies of Sensei's Divining Top. Not frequently seen, but she said that she wanted a little bit more action against discard-heavy decks. And when the game's slow, it allows you to manipulate your draw and makes you a lot less susceptible to the Thought Seizes and Duresses of the world.
That's a lot of Divining Tops. You said the full 4 count here?
Feline attempts to resolve a Merchant Scroll, which goes through. And she finds a Force of Will, which is a very strong indicator that next turn we're going to see some fireworks. If Joel doesn't do something pretty powerful here.
The beauty of High Tide, too, she can actually just say go forever. And then when she feels like it, she can go off. It's kind of like what High Tide does, especially against the aggro decks. They will take damage up until the last point is about to smack you in the face the next turn, and then will go off easily. There's no reason to rush it against the aggro decks because every island you play is crucial.
Feline casts Ponder. It's got Cunning Wish, Brainstorm, and a card I cannot identify from here.
No idea. These cards starting to mesh together a little bit. Just putting Preordain, Brainstorm, and Cunning Wish on top. From a commentating standpoint, it's really tough to piece together what Feline is going to do. Since all the cards are pretty similar in what their purpose is, card draw, cantrips, etc., she pretty much has full knowledge of her hand and can piece together exactly what she needs. All I know that she needs to do at this point, and what we know together here, is just play islands, and then obviously before Joel kind of gets a stranglehold with either Counterbalance, she needs to attempt to go off here.
And a turn. Philodistrin finds a Tundra for Joel.
Did Feline miss a land drop?
No, Joel was on the play.
Okay. This is my favorite combo deck in the format. This thing is a real cool deck that runs all islands. You know, it's a fun deck.
Well, he's found Force of Will, Jace, and a fourth land. Not the shabbiest reveal here with the Divining Top.
Right.
As he needs to get some sort of pressure going. Jace certainly qualifies as pressure.
Right.
And another piece of disruption in Force of Will that he can cast. Now he has two pieces of disruption, both Counterspell or Vendilion Click on top of the Force of Will he's just drawn.
Right. I think he's going to. Obviously, he doesn't care about the Jace at this point, but he will. He's going to play Click in a turn, I'm assuming. And he's going to see a handful of stuff. We're okay with this card here. Weirdly, we got to keep her off of High Tide. That's the scary card. The cool thing about High Tide, though, if it does resolve, Joel's Islands also double in mana, which allows you to easily fight in a counter war.
So Feline very happy to test spell Joel because she can get to a spot where she can just overwhelm him with mana and multiple haymakers in one turn.
Right.
So she can try to develop a board that is capable of going off through multiple pieces of permission by trying to generate as much mana as possible.
And that's the key importance of, and this is a mistake, I think. Candelabra is a card that, it's a necessary piece for going over, but the card that you counter, Feline's got to be happy with this. There's only one card in this deck that you need to stop, and that is High Tide. That's the card you need to stop.
Well, I think the problem is, from Joel's perspective, he's so bottlenecked on mana. If Feline just plays Candelabra and says go, then Joel, I guess he can cast Vendilion.
Well, it has no net advantage until High Tide resolves. Like, Candelabra does 0 until the High Tide resolves.
But he's not going to be able to fend off every High Tide that she plays for the duration of the game, I think.
No, not. Yeah, at this point he should have played Click to see how many High Tides she has. Like, countering that is it's not like he would have done nothing. He would have put a threat on the board, he would have put a High Tide on the bottom of her library, and then he would untap with Force of Will, Counterspell. So she would need 2 more High Tides in order to have any advantage here.
So at the end of Joel's turn here, Feline tries to cast Meditate, trying to test spell again, trying to bait out whatever disruption he has.
I think Joel is going to be. I think he's countering anything she plays at this point. The Meditate again is questionable.
Feline with a Brainstorm on the main phase.
She's going to peek at the third card and then shuffle. Oh, it's an island. That's what she wanted, so she will keep. Never mind. She's going to shuffle.
But I think that Joel has to fight over things like Meditate. What's he going to do with his next turn? Probably nothing.
He needs. If he doesn't play this Vendilion Click, he's going to lose. So, I mean, if he keeps doing this, then he's not going to win this game. He has no information of her hand. And if he finally does, when she was tapped out, then he can actually get the High Tide. Now she keeps having mana open these last 2 turns of Brainstorm. Now he's never going to be able to click with an advantage. Feline, she knows how to beat this deck. She knows if I keep my High Tides protected and hidden, Joel, eventually I'll be able to overwhelm him, like you said, with mana, and then this game's going to be over. So it's not the keeping her off of cards and Candelabra. It's the information he should have got from her hand that first time when she played the Candelabra, saw the high tide, put it on bottom, and then you're like 3 you, and put it in her court to actually have to redraw those high tides. Because high tide can win without Candelabra, or excuse me, without high tide, it's nearly impossible to.
Much harder for her to go off manual style than
Right, you would need 6 islands out, and it's actually probably can't do it. You probably would need to hit one off the time spiral that you're going to do. Because right now, Joel, he hasn't advanced much board presence here. He's going to have another chance here, and he's running out of counterspells. He wasted a counterspell on the Candelabra, which does nothing in this state. The counterspell on the Meditate, I can see that because Pierce is not exactly the best counterspell anyway. But now, if Feline finds out that Joel is weak here, she can easily go off.
she just keeps setting up her hand here. Under no real pressure to act. Sets back Candelabra and top and draws Divining Top.
Definitely the series Feline's got to be happy with. And she's going to continue her quest to draw A, high tides, or keep the one she has, and B, something to do with the high tide. Either a time spiral, which is obviously the best card possible with high tide, even just a Candelabra with some cantrips is not so shabby either.
So I assume this means we're going to spin the top again. Find Cunning Wish, Time Spiral, it appears to be Time Spiral.
And some altered card, is that another high tide? Alright, he's finally going to click here. He's going to see the card to take here is definitely high tide.
She's going to force this.
This is, and it kind of shows you the power of high tide. No matter what, she does not want him to have that card.
So Joel is responding to that force of will. Perhaps he's willing to force back. And it's one of the, you know, if Feline cares enough about this click to force, then you sort of by definition care enough to force back.
Oh yeah. Against a Star City employee, I played the feature match. He's playing high tide. In game 2, I Inquisitioned him, took his high tide and surgical extraction, and he conceded on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows you that it's way too tough to come back from that. Luckily for Feline, Joel's not playing any black, so it was much harder to get that situation.
And he's just found Forcible and another blue spell, which he can also access both cards next turn through his top. So he can force this and still have another Forcible back up.
Yeah, I think what he might do is he still have the Jace in his hand?
He has to force away.
I think he draws the Ponder here, forces pitching Ponder, then untaps plays Jace. Because Feline will not win with 2 cards in her hand. He will force pitching Force. I don't like that.
She
Flusterstorms
the Force of Will.
Alright, so he wasted that Force. I think he should have pitched the Ponder that's on top of his library. I think a Force is way more valuable than Ponder. But now he's just going to slam Jace here. I mean, I think he saw his Ponder. He's like, maybe I should have pitched his Ponder.
Playing the Divining Top for Joel.
He should have played Jace first in case she has a second Flusterstorm. Actually, it wouldn't matter. It would have countered it. Just kidding. It's not Force Spike. It's much better. Keep forgetting that. It is, at minimum, miscalculation. Go for it, Joel. Time to go for it. There we go.
6 Jace here. That prompts a response from Feline, spinning the Divining Top.
If she has Force, she'll probably use it.
Looks at high tide, puts high tide back, chases in.
You definitely brainstorm here. Fate Sealing when after she tops too. You have to assume she put the worst card on top.
Ponder, Plow, Brainstorm. Let's see if Feline can capitalize on this. opens top.
Let's see, snap here. Another way High Tide produces mana.
Confirms 1 card.
I like how she waits for the upkeep. Again, we see this play from more grizzled veterans of the format. You definitely, if they have a counterspell, you want them to use it on their turn. The only negative of that was if Joel has a Force of Will, he could have paid 5 and hard casted it.
Ponder from Joel.
Oh, there's Counterbalance. This might be a huge disastrous swing for Joel. Because once Counterbalance is in play, that Jace will just be plussing until the end of time there. It's a much faster clock than say I've been doing, because you're able to manipulate library also.
So now there's a big question for Joel, right? Do you just assume that this is good enough to lock it up, and are you starting to go? You start Fate Sealing, or?
I think so, because looking at his list, he has 1 counterspell already burned. He has 2 Force of Wills already burned, so he has a Force of Will left in his deck. So he's not really digging to much counterspells. He has 2 Spell Pierce and a Force left in his deck. No Snapcaster Mage to rebuy. Now, Feline having that top is a pretty good card to have against Jace, obviously, because now you're putting the garbage on top, or cards that are semi-garbage that you want your opponent to think you don't need, and then they can put it on bottom. You're like, oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Joel shows Brainstorm, draws Spell Pierce, and it looks like he's committed to trying to ride this Jace and use countertop to lock out enough of Feline's plays.
Yeah, I think he knows that he's not going to beat her by digging to the designs and counterspells, and he just burns the Spell Pierce there.
I think that he thought maybe she has less mana untapped than that.
Yeah. Now he's going to top a response.
Yep. Going to try to find a 3 to put on top. Looks at Divining Top. All right, Intuition is going to resolve.
Not that you realize. Yeah, he definitely realizes.
And here we go.
And
Doesn't get 3 spirals.
And he has Terminus in his deck, which is quite the funny situation here if that occurs. Never would he be more happy to see a Terminus against High Tide right here. Was his only card? Is it Brainstorm? So you can look 1 card deeper?
Correct.
I don't know if he has Terminus on top. I didn't see any of the cards. But if he does, Feline will be pretty much almost KO'd here, because 2 Time Spirals in the yard with a 3rd one. Pretty bad news. Even if Time Spiral resolves here, Joel does get a full 7 and he gets to redo his countertop shenanigans, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I think Feline is happy to say go there, and it's just
Joel needs to find a Terminus.
Using that Intuition there as... How about you just use the Intuition there as a free shuffle?
Yeah, I think you Brainstorm here because you need to find Terminus. Or you Fate Seal yourself. Absolutely don't Fate Seal her. There we go. That's a good play. On bottom.
1 card deeper for his Brainstorm potentially.
Yeah, exactly. He really needs to hit 6. He doesn't need a 6 right now, but eventually he will. Or at least a 1 for High Tide. If he gets to a 1 and a 6 on top of his library, I don't think he can lose. He just keeps shuffling those around.
Yeah.
I think Feline has a Cunning Wish.
Well, the Wipe Away is the big
Right.
potential trump to all of this.
Mm-hmm. He definitely built a shallow castle here, a sand castle, if you will. Can easily be knocked down, kicked down. But in the meantime, until she actually gets that card, there's no end in sight here. He has a Jace on top. It's not going to do anything.
Joel untaps and draws.
It's time to Fate Seal himself once again.
He drew an Enlightened Tutor, which is also very nice because it gives him a lot of flexibility for his his counterbalance as well.
Right, and he can also brainstorm and put that Enlightened Tutor on top of his library, which counters a High Tide for 1, so he has a 1 now. He also can just tap Divine Top itself as a 1 that's on top. So he has Spell Pierce. I think it's time to put Jace on top of your library and face seal yourself again. I think he's all in on this plan. I don't think it's right to brainstorm at any point now.
He's got to try to cross the finish line as fast as possible.
Right.
Jason goes up to 11.
Oh, and he's doing her deck. Problem is, you really don't know what she needs. Obviously, Wipe Away is bad. Merchant Scroll, we know this, but I don't think Joel knows.
All right, end of turn, Wipe Away on Counterbalance.
So he needs a 3 on top.
Feline is making her move.
That's it. He does, maybe doesn't know that it triggers also. If he draws a 3-drop,
He might know that there's just not a 3 on top of the deck.
Right. He has Blood Moon Click, that could have been it.
And now it's time to see, I think it's time, 1 High Tide.
All right, I think it's time to dig 1 card deeper here
And
in Brainstorm.
you can tell, Feline can kind of sense that Joel does not have a lot left in the ways of resistance. She's bled out so many counterspells and pierces and force of wills and
Right. It really came down to if Joel knows what's in Feline's deck, he probably can win by stopping the Wipe Away with a 3 floating on top.
Alright. So we're topping in response.
Oh, we knew he had that, so we knew he had the 3 cards there. You needed Brainstorm and then top instead of that.
Responding with Enlightened Tutor.
Thank you for the free spell, she says. Let's put this little dice over here.
Enlightened Tutor is in essence just an opportunity to shuffle. That's all that's going on here.
He needs to hit his last Force of Will. Oh, and he's getting a card.
So this is all in response to the first High Tide that's currently on the stack. Tension Sphere goes on top. We're going to spin top. Look at the Tension Sphere. Vendilion Click Counterspell. Does he have enough mana left over to... I think... Is he 1 mana short of being able to get that click?
He has to let High Tide resolve and hope that
Yes, he can let High Tide
Feline
resolve.
passes priority in some way.
If she tries to cast a second High Tide, then
That is going to be a huge one. All right, it's not even a thought here. Maybe, hopefully he knows that his lands tap for double too.
Yeah, a lot of people do not know that High Tide is a symmetrical effect. So, all right, 1 High Tide resolves.
Oh man, if he knows, I don't think he knows. He does not know.
Yeah. So now we're gonna now this is where the fireworks go off here. Feline with 1 blue floating, all of her islands tap for 3 blue now. Gonna use a mana floating to
Gives him a chance again to respond.
For whatever it's worth, there was a Force of Will on top there, so she could have topped into Force of Will and used her last blue card. Time Spiral resolves. It appears 10 mana is floating. These lands are going to untap. And all this setup, all the, the turns of shucking and driving around Joel's seemingly unlimited permission and Sensei's Divine Top Counterbalance, Vendilion Click, Feline has finally been able to get a Time Spiral to resolve. And now it is unlikely that Joel is much longer for this world.
Nope. Joel's hand would have to be... Remember, he pitched a Force of Will too, so he's got very little... Feline's top 7, I've seen awful 7s before. I don't think... you have to be extremely unlucky to lose
The deck
this.
is so much cantrips and search and...
Yeah. And it's-
pieces that find other pieces.
and all those islands in play, and she is stacked. That
Oh
is-
yeah, and his hand is no action. Laction. That's
Yeah, it's
the
action. There's that terminus he wanted.
attempts to resolve Merchant Scroll.
Candle and another High Tide too. High Tide, and then as Merchant, excuse me, a Candelabra's already in play. Excuse me. So
Cunning
she,
Wish.
so she has Candelabra in play. So she has about, I crunched the numbers, about 640 mana. I think.
It's a lot of mana.
It's a lot of mana.
Four in the pool. Each island taps.
I counted the 4. She has 636 available outside of the pools.
Blue Sun Zenith is the eventual kill here.
Right.
So we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 mana, minus 12 floating. Blue Sun Zenith for a trillion, and that is game.
And force your force and force your force. Okay, so Feline wins. Game 2, Joel needs maybe. How many people in this room do you think have played against High Tide in competitive arena?
Probably 300 people here.
Right.
I would probably guess less than 10% of the room.
I would
be
agree.
my guess.
I would agree with that. So Joel being probably part of the 90%, he doesn't know the value and what cards exactly he has to attack with his limited disruption. This game, I think he hopefully has seen the light and will definitely aim almost all counter spells at High Tide. You can burn spells, pierces, and daze effects all you want, but when it comes to the gritty end of the game, counterspell has to be aimed at High Tide.
Well, fortunately for Joel, it looks like he's got a ton of awesome cards to sideboard in here.
Yeah, finally we got a clock here. We got 3 guys Sent Draft coming in, all of them are coming in. He has Meddling Mage, great, 2 of those. A Venduing Click, fantastic. He has Aethersworn Canonist, which is a very good card against it. Flusterstorm, not so bad either. And then maybe...
He's got 2 Pyroblasts, too.
Yeah, Pyroblast, they're good. Obviously, Pyroblasts are good. Maybe the Entreat, I don't know. I kind of don't want to tap out on my turn ever. But he does have a lot to board out. Let's see what he boards out. He
4
boards out
Swords, 2 Plowshares.
4 Sword to Plowshares, 3 Terminus, that's 7 cards. Let's see what else he got. Yeah, the Blood Moon, that is.
Yep, Blood Moon is not good.
8 cards. I'd probably bring out the Helm and all the Rest in Peace as 9, 10, 11. Maybe Enlightened Tutor.
I think you probably want Enlightened Tutor once you're bringing in an Aethersworn Canonist. You
That's
actually
true,
have
yeah,
a real
Right.
positive target to go get with
Right.
Enlightened Tutor.
Feline will have a hard time winning if he is able to assemble enough cards in play, like Meddling Mage, Aethersworn Canonist, and or the combo of Counterbalance top, in order to make one Wipe Away Null and Void. She would need to have lots of Wipe Aways in order to win against that.
So, Feline's side of this, her sideboard is obviously very Cunning Wish oriented because that's eventually the kill here. So, a lot of her sideboard slots are taken up by utility that for her Cunning Wish. Now, she can do some amount of swapping with Merchant Scroll. So that's often a configuration that gets made in post-board games where people take out Cunning Wish targets and move them into the main deck because they either want to draw additional copies or they want to be able to access them with Merchant Scroll. The only real cards to bring in, she has 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage. I would assume not for this matchup, and again, 3 copies of Pact of Negation can come in. I think those are more for other busted combo decks where you need additional disruption, or decks where they're taxing your hand, where you want to sub out Force of Will but still be able to power through a piece of response when you're comboing out.
Right, it's definitely a much less impact sideboard when you're a combo deck. You don't have or when you're Cunning Wish deck, excuse me, you don't have the luxury of just boarding in these 3s and 3s and 2s. You really bring in a couple, like you said, to increase the Merchant Scroll likelihood of hitting these cards. But I think Feline is pretty comfortable with this matchup. Maybe she might not know after board the Hurricane that Joel's bringing. But again, it's not that Joel is messing up, it's that this matchup is probably untested waters for him, and Feline knows that the reason why she wins a lot of these matches, I'm sure, is because she's playing against opponents that really don't know how her deck operates, or what cards to counter, or what cards to fight against, or what cards to name with Meddling Mage. So maybe we'll see a similar game this time around too.
Yep. And in fairness to Joel, his game 1 configuration is not great for this matchup. He has a lot of air. he drew about as much disruption as you can reasonably ask for. A bunch of counter spells. He had Dividing Top, Counterbalance. He had a Vendilion Click, a Jace. He avoided drawing a lot of plows. Obviously, some of that has to do with his reshuffle effects and what have you. But
right. Yeah, and it's just funny that before she drew the wipe away, we were kind of hoping that a tournament should be on top there. Would have been real handy.
Feline starts action off with a Ponder. It's at Dividing Top, Force of Will, Polluted Delta. Puts Force and Delta on top. Counterbalance the draw for Joel.
I wonder if things ever got desperate with High Tide. She can run the old 2 senses Dividing Top, create my own Storm combo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with a couple High Tides, you might not need anything else. All right, let's say Joel here. The Counterbalance getting forced is necessary. I think Feline knows that Wipe Away helped last time, but you're not going to get it every time.
No, and you know, with brainstorms and other sources of manipulation, just not something. Also, Joel's ability just to hit blind.
Competitors. Your pairings for round 2
Spins
are
top.
now going up. Easier judge where you got your pairings last
Feline's got
round.
some exciting stuff on top, a bunch of blue cards that do the same thing. It's pretty tough, again, to kind of judge her beginning game state, besides her playing land and having cantrips.
Joel draws a Jace, and let's see, he's not confident in tapping out, which is understandable.
Yeah, if Feline has a flush, did she remove a flush draw?
No, she put a top back on top of her deck because she has another top in her hand.
Oh, for the the Force of Will, what she removed, do you know?
It appears, yeah, she removed a Flusterstorm.
Okay. So, Joel might be in the clear for that Jace.
Well, he doesn't. I mean, you can tell he's obviously super worried about tapping out and just dying.
Right, yeah.
Which actually, I think her hand's pretty set up. She has a High Tide and a.
Oh, here we go. This is what I like. The end of turn click. This is you do this immediately. I mean, once you hit 3 mana, or once you hit the mana where it's safe to drop in a turn, you drop it.
Especially now that he may be able to play Jace with Pierce up, and that might be enough to stave off Feline while she's trying to assemble her hand.
Right. Oh, he was flicking a card in his hand for us. He was showing us Caracas. He might be a little impressed with this little mini combo he's got here. Caracas and Vendilion Click. Pretty good force to be reckoned with.
It's a tough row to hoe, though. I mean, he can't sit here all day. That's a
Right.
common misconception when you're playing against High Tide, is that once you get an edge, you can kind of just sit around. The deck is so redundant and takes not actually that much to be able to go off from nothing but basic lands in play. So it's incumbent on Joel to get whatever he needs to get in play, whether a Click plus Jace is a good foundation, whatever,
Right.
and then start winning the game pretty quickly from there.
And Feline asks who's targeting. And that is a pretty bad hand. You take Merchant Scroll here. Time Spiral is something that's not a card she's going to need for a long time. It's not a card that's going to do anything with that bunch of High Tides. The Merchant Scroll is a High Tide, essentially. And I think he's going to, I think he knows about it. She put it in the graveyard and he's going bottom. There we go.
Yeah.
So her hand is that Flusterstorm?
Yes.
All right, so Flusterstorm, Cunning Wish, and Time Spiral. Ooh, Geist of St. Trap. That is actually way better than Jace here, I think.
Yeah, he can.
It's actually
really his clock.
It's a 2-turn clock with a click. Yep. Drop the Jace. I think it's 4 islands in play. Is that what I see?
It's 4 basic islands and a Caracas. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
So I think he may be debating just trying to pass and use his Caracas and soft permission to fend her off.
I don't like this play. He saw her hand. He knows that there's pretty much no chance of her going off next turn, especially through a Spell Pierce also. You really, like you said, you just can't let this deck hang around and have a good time,
Yeah, you gotta. So I think inside the draw step, it looks like Joel's gonna go for it, where he.
I mean, this isn't that bad either, but you can do this the next turn too, and it pretty much puts Feline at attack, dead.
Yeah, this is Joel is treading on some dangerous water. It may not appear that way from where you're sitting, where he's basically able to duress every turn, but
Yeah.
unlike conventional storm decks, which need a lot of rituals and a density of mana and cards that go off, High Tide does not need that. That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier when we spoke of stability. It can go off from not a lot of resources.
Exactly, and we see she has so many things like Brainstorm right here, which makes Click pretty irrelevant. She also has Top, so she never has to draw the card that she really wants to put in her hand until the very end. So, and the Click gives him a 5-turn clock rather than a 2-turn clock from playing the Geist last turn.
Reveals a hand of Island, Cunning Wish, Time Spiral. Is that a Preordain on the right?
My favorite card in Magic. It's a nice one.
And what was the last card? A Flusterstorm, I believe.
Right. Michael Herrick, another good Star City Games grinder. He's a fan of Preordain instead of Ponder and Stoneblade. And here's my confession. I respectfully disagree with the young man. Ponder digs deep. Preordain just lets you keep those loosey-goosey hands.
Feline spinning again.
I see same old cards in rotation. I think either line I would have taken with Joel would have been either Jace with Spell Pierce up or Geist. Jace has a similar effect of Click, able to control draw sets, but again, that Top makes it difficult to do so.
Puts back and passes the turn. Scalding Tarn, the draw for Joel. Click across for 3, down, knocking Feline down to 11.
Now there's no point in playing the Geist because it does not shorten the clock. He can wait till next turn, which he puts her at 8 to play the Geist, and that'll be a 1-turn swing after that. But again, he's given her at least 3 more turns. She would actually be dead this turn. She would have to go off this turn if the Geist is in play.
So we may be debating in the draw step here.
I think she drew and she said go. I think he didn't even click her. Interesting. There's no reason not to do it now, you know.
And so again, the same play, Caracas Click we saw before.
It might be in the draw, so you might be right. I saw her go move her finger forward. I don't know if that means go or are you clicking or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing here? I always wanted to incorporate a spell in this High Tide deck. What's the Time Walk? Miracle Time Walk? Temporal
Mastery.
I always thought that'd be a cool card in this deck because playing an island in this deck is pretty. That's a mega Time Walk for this deck.
Oh sure.
Yeah, probably is horrible, but you know, the kid in me wants to take a 2-mana Time Walk. I mean, especially if you're playing Divine Top and Brainstorm, you're not drawing that card. Ponder, Preordain.
A lot of ways to set it up.
Oh yeah. For the low cost of 2 mana.
Click looking at a hand here of Merchant Scroll, Time Spiral, Candelabra, Preordain, Flusterstorm.
I'll run it by Feline after this match here. See if she wants to play broken cards. On bottom, not in the graveyard. There we go. So she's going to draw.
Taps everything. Draws another, appears to be another Vendilion Click. Sorry, Scalding Tarn.
I think he's going to play the Geist this time. I think he realizes that it's time to put this to a 1-turn clock. So he basically, in essence, gave her 2 free turns, but at least he's doing it now because this says you better win next turn.
Yeah, and then he's drawn another Click, so he has the, again with the new Legend rule, you can just play a Click as a piece of hand disruption this turn, and if he's feeling so inclined. He's probably still committed to leaving up Spell Pierce and Flusterstorm, as we've been seeing, but it's another It's another thing he has access to.
All right, so we're gonna see it here. I think I would have left. I wouldn't have left Caracas up. There's no reason to. He's not gonna have the mana to do any of that. I would have left Tundra up. Just
All right, here we go. Feline, back to the wall. We got to go for it here. So.
All right, and you want to do the spell piercing now to prevent the mana from being an issue. Because if you wait for it to resolve, it's basically a bust. So you spell pierce this here. You're tap 2, and then you make Fluster Storm rain down.
I think he might be debating clicking here.
Problem with click here, if she has force, she can get around it. If she has force and he spell pierces, she'll gladly pay the 2, and then the Fluster Storm should cover the remaining islands. And he is going to click.
Click in response.
So if she has force, she's going to probably beat him this game. It's a pretty dangerous play.
Let's see if Feline has a response here. You can see she has Time Spiral in hand. Tops in response for Pact of Negation. And that was immediate. Couldn't have pacted fast enough.
Yeah,
and now I think we're going to go.
I think this game is pretty much
she can
over
fizzle
again.
from here. She doesn't have a ton of resources to work with just yet.
I think she has a second high tide with this Merchant Scroll here.
Sure.
And then she's going to Time Spiral with the 2 high tides.
Yeah, so she'll have exactly 6 mana.
Right, yeah. If I was Joel, I'd just casually get up and walk away from the table.
Your participation here is probably about done with.
I think you're no longer needed for the remainder of this match.
Yeah. I mean, you're here, technically, but you're not really here.
Right. It's curious because he held the Fluster Storm and he held the Spell Pierce so carefully the entire game, and then he just like, tap out the hit you.
Well, I think that he thought it was, she might be able to fight over the top of him with mana if she was leaning on exactly 1 card to go off with.
He's had enough. I like it. He's like, oh no, never mind. The game's continuing. I thought he was conceded. It looked like he just like shifted all together. All right, he's battling still. We're still on. He's like, you know what? I got a lot of hate too in my deck. Sadly, all of his lands are tapped again from the click attempt. The spell pierce into the Fluster Storm would have been
much harder. Probably much harder for Feline to go off.
Right. Yeah. Because she could have packed the negation of the spell pierce. I think that would have been pretty bad to do. I don't think she would have done that. And again, I don't fault Joel for this. I don't fault any player playing against High Tide. If you don't know how to play against a combo deck you've played it maybe once in your life or 0, I can't imagine. The first time I played against these combo decks like Storm, I'm like, oh, just tell me I'm dead. I don't know what I'm doing. I would point in my hand, help me out here.
Feline has found a Cunning Wish, so I had to assume this is going to be a lethal brain freeze shortly.
He has Force of Will, so Joel can stop one thing. So if Feline does not have a Pact or Force, he can stop her. But she is now up to 600 mana again, because if you've noticed, she has played a second Candelabra.
Yeah, so at this point, just trying to find a way, I believe, to win through Brain Freeze, so she doesn't really have to worry about Force of Will. That's an option.
Right.
Looks at the Cunning Wish. Finds Meditate. Meditate, something of an implication that she's a little short on pieces right now, that she needs to keep digging. Tends to resolve Meditate, and that's going to evade out of Force of Will. Well, I don't know. Again, the Meditate.
It's going to be. Well, we're going to find out right now.
Is topping a response?
If I am down to 1 Force Will with double High Tide, I probably would use it too because I'm pretty.
Taps the Candelabra for a bazillion mana. I mean, her getting that Cunning Wish, that Meditate there implies that she's a little short on resources.
Right. I think she has another.
There's a second Cunning Wish here.
This is going to be for Blue Sun Zenith. She can actually Blue Sun Zenith herself for an absurd amount here, and then have enough mana open to continue on her little train here.
Yep.
But she's going to elect for Meditate, and she has Merchant Scroll in her hand too. She's got the pieces. I think she's just being super careful. She knows that the game is going to be over this turn, and
You can see the speed that I mean, she's just humming along here.
Right, and I mean, this is just, it's all over, except for the crying here.
There's a merchant scroll.
I'm gonna go get the Zenith of the blue variety, or Brain Freeze, doesn't matter. Brain Freeze I think is in the board. What in the world is that? That looks like the fairy from, they get the fairy on top of your library. Lorwyn, or the merfolk. I don't know what that is.
That's a turnabout, which
Yeah.
is another ritual.
Does not look like a turnabout. Is that a different art, or? It's not the Saga one, definitely.
Brainstorm. It's really hard to imagine that she's missing pieces somehow.
No, the game is over because of that merchant scroll in her hand. She can just go get Blue Sun Zenith.
Turnabout for untold hundreds of mana.
Yeah, we're just, she was telling us about how she Blue Sun Zenith for 300, so I think she's having a good time here. I'm on camera. I'm going to make Joel draw enough cards to kill him and the 6 opponents behind him.
She's spiraling, actually, so...
I must be missing something. If she has Merge Scroll in hand and the most mana, 12 floating just from that, enough spells, obviously Brain Freeze too. Maybe that 12 is her spell count. I don't know if that's her mana. I don't know how much mana she has floating. So 12 mana. Alright, does she even have a spell count? I mean, is she... It's definitely an absurd amount.
They may have passed the point where there's just an agreement that Brain Freeze is lethal.
Right. And the Merchant Scroll can do it. I guess there's no reason for her to do this if she had the win, so maybe I'm missing something. Unless she does what some people do, toying with your opponent. Have you ever just hung out with a lightning bolt when your opponent's at 3 and just?
I've had a sudden shock slow roll in my life. It's true. I'm not too proud.
I've had it done to me by red players, and I wanted to punch my moto screen into bits there. But. So we are. I think we're full blown toying with him. So.
And Joel's redraw did not include Force of Will, so
I think Joel has a F6 now at this point, so it's
another top. We actually do have the access to the manual kill that you talked about before, where we have enough mana to just divining top and storm out.
Top, draw my top, in response to top, draw my top, have a good time.
But it appears as though she may have actually
what happened
somehow.
What she must have boarded out. Did she board out Brain Freeze? She must have.
She has no Brain Freeze.
Holy cow! She says Storm isn't the kill. We got a little quote from her. So does she not have Brain Freeze in her deck?
She has it as a Cunning Wish target, I believe. Yeah, there's one in the sideboard.
Oh. Because she can... Interesting.
Yeah, I can't even... I'm not quite sure how she wasn't able to win from that position. She had Scroll for Cunning Wish and a trillion mana.
Merge Scroll gets sorcery, right?
Oh, right, but she goes, so then she can... No, it gets a...
Does it get instant or
something? It gets instant. She can scroll for Intuition and Intuition for Time Spiral. That's a path that allows Merchant Scroll to get to
You're right,
Time Spiral.
Okay, so I just don't... I'm just confused. I mean, maybe at some point it got RFG'd from the Force Wall?
Possibly, yeah, I guess, but there's still...
The new rule is obviously you can't Cunning Wish for RFG cards like that. Not really new to me anyway. I'm an old dinosaur, so.
Yeah, so there must have just been a weird card removed to Force of Will there.
Must have been. And they're going to. They have an extension here.
Yeah, time has already been called for
Yes.
the regular competitors in the round.
So they have a minute 20 left on their clock here. Feline is the only one that can win here at
realistically, yeah.
turn 3.
Well, they have an extension, so that time on the clock, I'm not positive is correct, but we're past time for the regular people in the round. They have a minute left on the clock, so.
Yeah, they have 1 minute. Feline says go. Actually, she's gonna. If they play slightly quick here, only that will only benefit Feline here because the more time she has, turn 4 is almost certainly at least she can go for it.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Keeps on his ponder. Both players are saying land go, and yeah, like you said, Feline trying to play as quickly as possible here because 3 on-time turns is can be an hour for her, you know?
Right, yeah. Let's all hope not, but yeah, you're right.
Sacks at the end of the turn. Is casting Enlightened Tutor. I would assume this Enlightened Tutor is going to find Aetherspawn Canonist,
Yeah.
this guess?
Yeah,
Counterbalance.
if he has top in his hand, I like this. But I'm with you. If he doesn't have top in here, Aetherspawn Canonist is pretty much solid defense to guarantee this goes to a draw here.
Alright, so Joel is going to be turn 0. We're currently on turn 0. Draws Counterbalance. Casts Counterbalance.
Feline's going to respond, cracking a fetch land.
Indicating that this is turn 1.
I don't see her doing anything combo-oriented until the final turn. Only problem with that is, if she's turn 5, she has to kill with Zenith and it can't be the Brain Freeze route. Because there will be no 6 turn for death.
So we're seeing a Cunning Wish here, I assume still in response to the Counterbalance. Joel with Flusterstorm in hand, curious to see if he's willing to pull the trigger here.
I think at this point I'm countering anything, just at this juncture.
I think it's high tide.
Okay.
Passes the turn. Rest in peace, the draw.
Rest in peace. I guess against Time Spiral, you stop a lot of cards from going
Well, he
back.
still has Helm he still has Helm.
So he's still going for the 1-2
Yeah.
knockout punch. I see both in his hand. I guess maybe as a gentleman and scholar, he's trying to really change the make of his deck into a competitive, I'm going to try to kill you, even though we only have 3 turns kind of thing too, 5 turns.
Fully meditates, or attempts to resolve and meditate here.
That's going to give Joel
The 4th turn.
a 4th turn, and she gets a 5th turn.
turn. Yeah.
Right. That's an interesting situation there. He's at least going to flip Counterbalance here, right?
He's certainly mulling something over here. It seems. Just going to allow
just
her.
allows it to
meditate.
go.
So now Joel will get the 4th turn.
If she didn't have a Force Will, she would be dead to Helm here.
Yeah,
It's a funny.
He's just on. Oh, he
this
has.
might. Oh my God! If this is going to be a huge turn of events.
Oh my goodness. Turn.
Yeah.
Goes for Helm.
She only has 1 Force, I think.
Forces.
Well, first let's do. Come on, use your Counterbalance, my friend. Counterbalance. Does he have a blast in his hand too? A red blast?
I think that's an engineered explosives. This is his last card.
No, look at the middle card.
It's Flusterstorm.
Fluster. Okay. There we go.
Triggers
There we go.
Counterbalance. It's an island.
And it's time to force here. Oh my god.
Flusterstorm's
All
back.
right, she has a Flusterstorm.
And now, Feline gets the 5th turn.
All right.
She has High Tide Time Spiral in hand.
He's like, I tried my best.
He gave it a shot. Gave it a real
The old
shot.
college try there did not work out. I'm still stumped about game 2. I F6 with Joel there, and,
Yeah.
and then it came back and she was dead.
And there's Island on top. I mean, yeah. 5th turn of time. One High Tide.
They banned Sensei's Divining Top and extended back in the day, and the R&D explanation was it creates too much tournament time going to time.
Yeah, we are in a Divining Top mirror.
We're in a Divining Top mirror match. Shame on both of you. This is why we can't have nice things. It's true.
All right. But it can be a brain freeze kill.
That is interesting too. So it has to be
Because we're on the 5th turn of time here, so.
right. Joel will see his whole deck on the graveyard and win the game, or excuse me, draw the game if that doesn't happen. Hopefully they didn't shuffle any of that stuff back in because there's a rest in peace. I don't think they did. So we have a storm count here, 5 of 3. Just kidding. And it looked like the top right, but that's actually bottom right for us. Thank you. Let's see what this time spiral allows.
All right, 7 move cards. Again, this gives Joel a fresh, not only fresh 7 cards, but a fresh shuffle for his counterbalance.
Right. I see Meddling Mage. A little too late. All right, and that's not the card we're looking for. But if he has Brainstorm, he does not. Oh, his hand is just nothing.
Well, he has Counterspell, but I don't think he's aware that his island actually currently makes extra mana right
I
now.
don't think he's aware, and that's a key experience with against this deck thing because that's huge. Like if you're a blue-white control deck like this and they go off, and you're after time spiral holding 4 mana up, it's 8 mana, and you have Force Will, you're like hard cast Force Will, hard cast Counterspell, hard cast this card, and you can just get them. Maybe Feline would be nice and tell him. Feline would be nice to tell him that, hey, you're land snap for double 2. You think she's
I
going
wouldn't
to give
consider
me?
that to be nice if I was on the
It's
other
not,
end.
it's not courteous. Oh.
Nah. You can let someone else tell him that if you want to, but
By the way, yeah, back in the old days of Magic, cards applied to everything. There were very few your stuff things, you know? Crusade, all white creatures, and I mean, you can go through hundreds of examples. All the lords pump all creatures of the same type.
right.
So these old cards are
Much more likely to be symmetrical.
Yeah. It's definitely better for casual life.
All right, meditate. Again, we know top card of Joel's deck is a land, so don't have to worry about that counterbalance right now. There's a Divining Top. So adding to the storm count. Turnabout.
Just
Yes, Merchant Scroll.
doing a whole bunch of stuff. She's just going to show him his hand. He's going to go
High Tide.
She's going to get High Tide. Going to be able to create a lot more. 11 mana floating already, and here comes just more mana.
I mean, she needs to zenith him out, so this is not just any sort of. This is not just for show. She actually needs to get up to 50
Right.
or some odd mana.
Yeah. Yeah, the only other way is a Brain Freeze into the Zenith. There's also another angle, I guess. Not wishing anything bad about...
And oddly enough, the Rest in Peace actually makes it a little bit trickier to go off because often what these Time Spiral decks will do is Cunning Wish for Blue Zenith for a lot, Time Spiral again, draw the, and then eventually draw the Blue Zenith to kill them.
Right.
Because Rest in Peace is in play, she either needs to get that off the table or just fully manual Blue Zenith him out from here.
Right.
Which is
It's
just
no
a
joke.
weird little wrinkle to everything that's going on
Right.
here. You just see wipe away on Rest in Peace now, which frees her up to now probably set up
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
a big Zenith.
Yeah, we joked around about Rest in Peace during sideboarding, that it's not the greatest, but also it has some in-game applications. It does stop the time spiral from resetting everything, and it also stops the Blue Sun Zenith from you drawing a bunch of cards, getting it back, and then drawing a bunch of cards also.
Storm count up to 14. Ponder. Ponders again. Shuffles again. Last time of turns. Pretty large crowd gathered around this match. Finds Force of Will. Tops.
To be fair, she has 2 tops out. What I would have done a long time ago is drawn a card with one of the tops when she had 1 spell the previous time, and at least got rid of one of those tops. Kind of like that play here. Because she put 4 tops in. I think they've been pretty good for her. However, they aren't card draw spells. Essentially, they have to be actually sent back in the library in order to do that.
So we have now Cunning Wish for the Blue Zenith.
There we go. We're gonna Cunning Wish again. We're gonna get a turnabout, I think.
Yep.
She does.
And this is going to be
We're gonna get a high tide here again.
enormous sum of mana now. And now Blue Zenith for Blue Zenith herself, it looks like, for the remainder of her deck. Or I would assume pretty close to it. Like I said, this is why it was critical to get Rest in Peace off the table, because this is
Right.
when the deck has enough mana to function, this is the safe way to go off. So she's separating the cards that don't matter anymore from the cards that do.
And this
Another
is
high tide.
Can I say infinite mana? Is this infinite?
It is. Might as well be. Finds a spiral. Another candelabra.
Merchant Scroll. This will be getting the Zenith.
Yeah, this gets the Zenith back.
And this will be
Finally, Joel may draw his entire deck and then some by an order of magnitude.
Right.
And Joel, resigned to his fate, actually looking reasonably comfortable to be finally put out of his misery.
Yeah, this is torture.
And I believe that will kill him.
She's like, oh, you want to stop it? How about
And it's for 41. And there it is. Feline Longmore in the 5th turn of